Let's move on. Let's talk about Ohio State playing against Texas. Now, I just want to get the record straight here. All right. Was it this show, I believe, that said that Ohio State was the most talented team in the country heading into this college football playoffs? And was it everyone else that was doubting them after they lost to that Michigan team? I mean, I immediately took Ohio State, plus 400 or whatever it was to win the national championship. Second, they got. I mean, this team is loaded. Okay, this team is loaded everywhere. And when Will Howard is playing at the level that he's playing right now, right? I believe I saw a stat today on ESPN. It was like some scroller. It was like Ohio State has the highest completion percentage, and they didn't mention the quarterback's name. They just mentioned Ohio State as a team has the highest completion percentage on passes thrown 20 yards down the field. Oh, so Will Howard's got a bit of a deep ball. Who would have thought that Will Howard is a quarterback capable of winning a national championship? Oh, I don't know. It's like maybe we said that exact same thing at the start of the season when we were previewing Ohio State. Yeah. So Will Howard's a good quarterback, guys.
He's really, really good. And he's playing great football, complimentary football. He's playing within himself. The run game was awesome to see last game in the Rose Bowl. We talked about it in that first matchup. They did not run the ball great, right? Or Ohio State did. Oregon actually ran the ball with Jordan James significantly better than Ohio State did. That totally flipped. And a lot of that had to do with game script. I get that. But you saw early on Henderson Judkins get some chunk plays in the ground. And obviously, Will Howard was cooking early. Jeremiah Smith is cooking early. If they're playing like that, this team is impossible to stop. Right? I'm going to say that right now. If Ohio State plays their potential like they play in the past 2 weeks, they're going to win this game, and it's going to be by more than a touchdown. Probably more than maybe 2 touchdowns. Like this team, and they don't put the foot off the gas. They are just so, so talented. And if you are clicking and you have a bunch of seniors, guys that have been there and done that, like that matters so, so much. And obviously, you're seeing what a motivated group of talented individuals looks like, and it is coming to fruition. I got to give Ryan Day a ton of credit. We were on the show early. We said, yeah, they lost to Michigan. That's not unacceptable. Does not mean you fire him. At least let it play out, right? At least let it play out. And look what's happened, right? They have obviously soared expectations. They are dominating right now, playing great football. For Texas, though, I want to think about like when was the last time that we were like truly impressed with Texas playing like a complete football game up to their potential. And you go back maybe to Texas A&M and you're like, I don't know. I mean, you were at the game. It's like, yeah, they won by 10 points in a hostile environment, but did they impress you? I mean, running the football, yeah, but A&M's not a good tackling team, so it wasn't like that crazy like that. You got to go all the way back to Oklahoma, Red River in the second and third, fourth quarters. But even then, like it was like just a shell of a football team. That team finished 6-6. So again, not to say that Texas does not deserve to be there. They absolutely do. They beat who was in front of them. I do want to go back to like they the SEC is down this year. College football is down this year. The only team that is like a super team and like immensely talented is Ohio State. They are in the class of their own talent wise. This Texas team, right? I thought they'd score points last week. They did, and they needed overtime to do it, which is awesome. But I do worry about like how consistently they can play football. And if Ohio State is giving body blow after body blow, like how long can Texas last? We saw Tennessee not be able to get back up. We saw Oregon try to fight for a little bit, and they couldn't get back up. Obviously, like this Texas team, culture, everything's fantastic. The talent is there for sure. With everyone else in the country besides Ohio State, Texas has that. But I'm trying to find out ways like they win, other than Ohio State like coming back down to earth. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and you've heard this from every pundit, from ESPN to CBS to Fox, whatever, right? That this Texas team's going to go as far as Quinn Ewers does, right? And I don't know that he's going to go this far, further than this. I really don't. There are some games that he has where he has elite throws, okay? But there are also games where you're like, man, what? This is undraftable, And I don't know what Quinn we're going to get.
It
I
could
don't
be in the
know.
same game too, by the way. Like you saw
Yeah,
some plays in that Arizona State game in the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. It's like, what are you doing? Like you don't have to. Your team is so much more talented.
dude, that
What are you doing?
interception, what was that in the fourth quarter? Like when Arizona
What are
State
you?
is, Oh,
you're just air balls. You're hitting them short, and you're like, this is there's no pressure there. Like, what are you doing? And then you see the throw, some big time throws late in
in
that game
overtime.
too, in overtime, in the end of the fourth quarter to give you a chance to kick a field goal, right? And I kicked two field goals, right? I think is what it ended up being. But I, yeah, that's a great point. I do want to ask you this too, like, and we're probably the wrong show because we've been high. You've been high on Will Howard for a long time, right?
Yeah.
Like, imagine telling people, like, yeah, Will Howard is going to play Quinn Ewers in a playoff game, and Will Howard is going to have is the team with Will Howard is going to have an absolute definitive edge at quarterback than Quinn Ewers. It's crazy.
You
It's
know, and
crazy.
I don't know definitively like what you and I said in the preseason, but you and I both know, and we both said it. And you go back and watch our Ohio State preview, and we're like, Will Howard is a good quarterback, and he can get it done with his legs. He can get it done through the air, right? Uh, I mean, look, these two quarterbacks have played each other, and sure, I can't remember if it was the first half or the second half that Will Howard maybe didn't have a great half, against Texas, but with the severely less talented team, Will Howard was breathing down Texas's neck. Although that might have been a Malik Murphy led Texas team, but regardless, I mean, Will Howard's been there, dude. He's done that. I know Quinn Ewers, people think of him as like the veteran, right? But Will Howard's played a lot of football too, guys. All right, he's a good quarterback. There's a reason Lincoln Riley wanted him. There's a reason Georgia wanted him. There's a reason Miami wanted him. There's a reason that everyone wanted him, right? Because he has the tools, he has the size, he has the athleticism, he has the arm to be awesome. Not to mention, you're throwing to Jeremiah Smith, Emeka Egbuka, Carnell Tate, Trevion Henderson out of the backfield, G. Scott. Yeah, even with the injuries at the offensive line, I'm not worried about Will Howard and Ohio State here in this spot. I'll take him -5.5, and I'll take him to win the game.
Yeah, I believe we made a video back in April and May. We did, best position groups in college football, and we had that Ohio State position room as one of the best quarterback rooms in the country, right? And obviously, there was no ranking, whatever, but we were very high on him, and we're like, Will Howard can absolutely win a national title, and I think he's going to put him in a spot too. I'm going to go Ohio State as well. What are we picking this at? 6? Sorry, I didn't. Kind of.
I think we said 5.5. Uh, we'll pick it at 5.5 so we don't push.
Now, what if I tell you right now, Texas can run the football? Well, let me say, like, what are you worried about most about Texas? Like, in terms of like what's going to go wrong? I mean, I worry about.
Um,
I'll say
I'd be
this. I
worried about their
worry
pass rush, legitimately, and I'd
like
be worried
getting
about,
after Will Howard and those young offensive line. Not
yeah,
young, but
absolutely. I think that's a big deal. I think if Ohio State's able to run the football, it'll alleviate that. And I think they're smart enough, right? Like, they're not going to run that inside zone bullshit that everyone else has been trying to run against Alfred Collins in the middle there.
on
Like,
4th and 1.
you have Trevion Henderson, who's averaging, by the way, there's 5 running backs in college football averaging more than 7 yards per carry that have had 100 plus carries on the season. Okay. None of them are named Ashton Genty or Cam Scadaboo. All right. Trevion Henderson's averaging 7.2 yards per carry, and it is a lot of outside zone, right? Where you are getting outside and you are letting him, Trevion Henderson, make the decisions and use his speed and his athleticism to break off big runs. His break rate run percentage, 54.7%. You're also looking at a guy like who's had a 10 plus yard carry in every single game this year except one, and it was against Iowa. Okay. Where he only had like 9 carries, and he only gets like 10, 11 carries a game. That's the thing. Like, he might get more than that this game because they might need him to, right? If Texas is getting after the quarterback with, Colin Simmons, with Ethan Burke, um, with Trey Moore. I think that they lack size though at that edge spot where they might not be able to set those edges right the way that they want to contain Trevion Henderson. Anthony Hill is a huge player in this game for that reason. Like, his speed is so valuable, and I think it's made up for a lot, right, regarding that edge defense for Texas in the running game.
For sure, for sure. And that's also where you get these tight ends that have actually been playing pretty damn good football for Ohio State. You get these tight ends to be big time players, not only in the blocking game, but maybe sneaking them out. And we saw Chip Kelly like really get after it. Him and Ryan Day got after Oregon, got after Tennessee. That time spent off was time spent well. I think we can say that now for them. I do want to ask you. We're gonna run a list here, right? Instead of asking who's the better head coach, because right, I think I don't I don't know if there's an edge either way. I probably lean Sark just because of what he does play calling, but also like Ryan Day plus Chip Kelly like maybe kind of equals that out. But I don't like the better coaching staff. Which do you trust to prepare their team? Put on the spots to win here.
That's a great question because I'm a huge Johnny Manson stan, right? And Pete Kwiatkowski. I think those guys are two of the absolutely for no reason not talked about defensive coordinators in college football. Like no one talks about them
And
as
it's
being
tough.
elite coordinators. Kwiatkowski is a play caller and Nansen as a defensive mind. Them together are awesome, and it has worked out really well. I do
Kyle
think Jim
Flood
Knowles,
too is awesome. The O
yeah, Kyle
line
Flood's
coach.
good too. But how much is that a Sark, right? You wonder. But for Ohio State, like Jim Knowles, what's funny about Jim Knowles is like you only hear about Jim Knowles when Ohio State's defense is bad. But can I tell you that they're first in the country in points per game allowed, first in the country in total yards per game allowed, first in the country in first downs allowed, passing yards per game allowed, yards per play allowed. They're second in the country in red zone defense. This defense is awesome. You had one bad game against Oregon, right? And I guess a couple instances here or there, but Jim Knowles gets so much slack, right? And Ryan Day had been frustrated with him before as well, like a lot of times. It was like, yeah, this defense needs to be better. That's why I hired Jim Knowles. In previous years, it was the defense that let you down in big time games. Okay, I don't anticipate that being this game. Okay, but from what we've seen so far this season, this defense, aside from the Oregon game, has been lights out and an absolute difference maker for Ohio State. And I guess same with Texas too. Texas is their defense. Like they would not be as far as they are right now without that defense playing as well as they have this whole season.
Yeah, and it helps when you have like elite players at every phase of the ball at every level on the defense. But like Larry Johnson, James Laurinaitis, Tim Walton, guys that like get a lot of credit recruiting wise, like are also really good at developing, putting guys in the right spots here. Yeah, that's a great point there. I tend to kind of lean Ohio State's just a little bit, but again, I think it's worth noting at they're gonna need to be like they're gonna need to play well because if one coaching staff does not look great and the other one does, like that these teams are talented enough, and even though the line's at 6, like it could be enough, right? I don't expect a letdown from either one though. I think it's gonna be a fantastic like duel, right? Best player on the field, both sides. Is it Jeremiah Smith or am I overreacting? It
Uh,
it's or is it Caleb
Jack Sawyer's
Down,
up
Jack
there.
Sawyer?
Well, Kelvin Banks probably is the best player, but if you want to talk about difference makers, at skill positions, uh, I I think Texas's secondary is better than Ohio State's second. Well, Caleb Downs, I guess, is probably the best of
I
the
mean,
two.
you've got couple lockdown corners, couple really experienced safeties. You've got Caleb Downs, elite linebackers. Like I'm going through the list here, and I'm like, where do you give the edge to Texas? You mentioned the pass rush, maybe in terms of like Ohio State's potential weakness, which no one has been able to exploit other than Michigan. Right? We thought Oregon could have a chance with Jordan Birch. Right? We didn't really know if Tennessee would, but it really tests them. If you said early in the video, if they can really test this off Ohio State offensive line, you can't run the ball. You're in third and long, and your edge rushers are getting after Will Howard. Like we saw this with Dylan Gabriel. We've seen this with a lot of quarterbacks in college football. The numbers back it up. Everyone but damn near Jackson Dart gets significantly worse when pressure is applied to them. That includes Quinn Ewers as well. It includes Will Howard. Like that's just a key. In every game, every big game. It's like, okay, who's going to win the line of scrimmage? And if you're really controlling that on one side of the football, you're going to put yourself in a chance to win this game, no matter what the talent level is on both sides. Even though obviously Texas is supremely talented as well. Um, yeah, it's going to be a hell of a game. I think I could see a blowout. Right when I say blowout, I mean a couple like couple score game, right? Where it's like not over at halftime, but you're seeing Ohio State
Yeah,
potentially
like a
put the hammer down.
34-17 type of win.
Yeah, and it's like, yeah, it was kind of gross. Eventually, Ohio State kind of just bludgeoned them to death, and had to save up for the championship game. Or I could also see Texas winning, or I could see it just an absolute shootout, or like a low scoring sludge fest. And like, yeah, I will say like the Notre Dame Penn State one, like feels like it's just going to be a bloodbath, right, and a really good game. But like this game has a chance to be like a classic game, like one that we talked about of like playoff semifinal games or like New Year's Six bowl games that are just like back and forth, incredible talent, incredible atmosphere, incredible players, right? Obviously the magnitude is huge and just being really, really awesome. I would not be surprised if that's the case in this game here. Do you expect the crowd? So it's going to be in, we haven't really talked about this yet. It's going to be in Dallas. So it's going to be in Texas, not too far from Austin, right? I know you saw a lot of Texas fans potentially, save a trip from Atlanta to make sure that they can get to Dallas, potentially, forecasting that they'd win against Arizona State and have a matchup against Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl. Do we expect it to be pretty heavily Texas? I mean, obviously Ohio State loves to travel, but you saw a ton go out to Pasadena, right? Like how many are going to come back and make the trip? And by the way, Ohio, we know it. Ohio had some bad weather, right? And I don't know if that's going to affect not only the team practicing, right, or the team traveling down.
Well, Dallas, the weather in Dallas tomorrow is going to be brutal.
It's the day before game.
So like I'm saying, roads are going to be bad.
Be careful when you guys are traveling. If you guys watching this, you guys going to the game. First of all, let us know how it goes. Like, I'm so excited for you guys, but be careful traveling down there. Obviously, bad weather all throughout the country. I don't know. Are you expecting a lot of Texas fans, like significantly more Texas fans? Is this going to be a home game?
I, I I think it'll be pretty even, but I would anticipate slightly more Texas fans there. But I don't think it's going to be enough to where like it's a huge game breaking difference. You're going
To
to
me,
see significant fans from both sides, and they're going to be loud if you're playing well, right, on either side.
to me, it feels like Alabama and Georgia playing like in the Georgia Dome. Now, obviously, Alabama a lot closer. Tuscaloosa's a lot closer to Atlanta than Columbus is to Dallas, but to me, it feels similar. Where it's like, yeah, one team's technically closer in proximity, but college football crayons are crazy. Like they're gonna travel, they're gonna get out there, support their team, which is fantastic.